Out of the darkness and into the light, it's the This Woman Knows podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of This Woman Knows. I am your host, Lisa Ann Alexander. We're having a conversation on expat life, the great Blaxit. So I interviewed Miss Whitney not too long ago, and we talked about preparing or getting ready or just having the thought about actually moving and what that was, and especially having sons, being the mothers of Black sons, and what that means to raise Black sons here in the States. And so we had a great conversation. And so now I get the opportunity to talk to somebody who actually made the move. And today I have the privilege of interviewing my D9 sister. She's a Sigma Gamma Rho, but I'm not gonna hold that against her. I love her very much. She does awesome work. So this is Miss Nykema Brown. Nykema is a licensed esthetician, professional makeup artist, and beauty educator, specializing in conventional and airbrush makeup for brides and the professional woman. Her work is amazing. You guys have got to follow her, see her work. She's all over Instagram. She's on Facebook. Are you on TikTok, dear?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
She's on all the spaces. Everybody, please help me welcome Nykema Brown to This Woman Knows. I want to know when did you become aware of that this was even an option, that you could leave the country and start a new life?
Oh, wow. I probably became aware of it in 2020. Because of course, enter TikTok and all of these, as I would like to say, younger women with no children and no spouses, and it's just them, are starting to post TikToks about their travels and, being expats and living abroad or living as a nomad. But in terms of realizing that it was a possibility for me, it was definitely like the mid to latter part of 2021, when I just was like, this can't be life, right? This can't be it. And so I started doing a deliberate search for single Black mothers who were doing it, because it's one thing to see people who have no responsibilities outside of themselves. But what I did not see so much on TikTok were families or, moms, people who had other people that they were responsible for. So I started doing deliberate search for these things and joining Facebook groups and asking questions. So the mid to late part of 2021 was when I knew that it was a thing.
And so what were these series of events, or what was the straw that broke the camel's back that said this happens? So what got you there? Because a lot of people talk about it. It is it is a dream or something that people talk about but never put into action. So what was it for you that said this gets done and it gets done now?
Yeah, so this is a great question, because I love to share this as a Black woman specifically. So in 2021, I call that like my year of greatest ascension, right? And sometimes people think that ascension is pretty, and it is not. it's very ugly, right? It's all the things, like in the terms that I would use to kind of explain it to somebody who doesn't quite understand ascension. I was like, London Bridge was falling down. Everything was falling down around me. And so I basically went through essentially a breakdown. Right. I am the oldest child, the oldest grandchild. I'm the first of a lot of things. I'm the first, college graduate or college period. Right.
Wow.
The first, obviously, in Greekdom, the first of a lot of things. And so growing up, not intentionally, but, I think that most Black families teach their daughters to be codependent. They teach them that they are responsible for everything and everybody, and they have to make sure everything is good and everybody is good. And especially being the oldest, I always felt that I had to stay close, to be the support for my mom or be the support for my siblings, or when my grandmother was alive, for her, and just all these things. So there were many points in my life where I had opportunity to leave Houston and wanted to leave Houston, but it was like, nah, you can't be that far away. Right. So in 2021, all of these areas of how you are supposed to live and what you're supposed to do as a Black woman, and how you're supposed to just put your head down and be strong and keep pushing and do the things, I was breaking. Like I had no more of that. And so I reluctantly, and it was a struggle, I had 2 anxiety attacks just trying to choose me. Right. So I knew that I needed a break. So I wanted to take a break from work, like my corporate job. And actually, I wasn't going to take a break at first. I just let me work from home, because all the energy that I have every day, I am mustering to come in here because y'all won't let me work from home, which means I don't have it for my daughter and I don't have it for myself when I get back.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't want to let me work from home. So I was like, I got to take a break. So I took a leave, like this story can get long, but I'm gonna make it short. The average person would have taken an FMLA leave, but my employer would not let me work from home during COVID, and my daughter was 10. So I'm like, she can't be at home by herself. So they basically forced me to take a COVID FMLA leave in order to be at home with her. So because I had done that, I had not generated enough hours back in the bank for my leave in 2021 to be considered FMLA. So they converted me to short-term disability. So while I was on this short-term disability leave, I got a therapist. I'm doing what the therapist says. The therapist tells me I had 2 trips planned, one for to celebrate my god sister. She had a lot of things that she accomplished in 2020, but we didn't get to go on the trips because of COVID, right? And then I had my birthday trip, which was going to be the first international solo trip I had taken in my life. I was going to cancel both of them because I literally thought I was losing my mind. Mm-hmm. And she was like, no, these are places that will uplift you and they make you feel good, and you're going to be by the water and you're going to be in a different space that's completely separate from here. So go, do the thing, take the trips. The first trip was to St. Thomas, which technically is still the US, right? But is US Virgin Islands. But the second trip was St. Thomas. The first trip was St. Thomas. The second trip was Ocho Rios, Jamaica. 2 totally different places. Mm-hmm. But in both of those places, my driver said the same thing. He was like, you Americans don't know how to live. Y'all are always rushing, always working, always going. Everything's busy, 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 work, work, work. And he was like, you leave work to come and like do a vacation. But then even on your vacation, you got a schedule. You're always moving and da-da-da. Like he was like, you don't know how to live. Both of them basically said the same thing.
They did not lie.
So the second time I heard it, they did not. They did not lie. And the second time I heard it, I started putting the pieces together. I'm like, ma'am, you are actively in mental health crisis because of all the things. Mm-hmm. And you struggled to even choose yourself. Like you have, when I say full-blown anxiety attack, just in trying to tell the person that I worked for that I gotta choose me. Like I need me. What's that TikTok? I gotta choose me, Lucius. So when I thought about what they said, like I really heard it. I was like, not only is it true, but you are actively living it. Like you are actively in crisis because of it. And that was when I was just like, you know what? We're going to figure out, where can I go that work-life balance actually exists? Because it's not a thing in the United States. It's just not. It's the biggest lie ever. But I was like, where can I go? Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about this research. So if you're starting to look, and tell us what places had you considered?
Yeah. So again, remember I said I joined the different Facebook groups for expats, and I started asking questions. So what I wanted to know is, if you are a single mom, or and you have children, specifically teenagers, specifically daughters, right? Like, where are you guys going? Have you been that you felt safe, you felt at peace, you felt that your children were good, you were good, it was just a great experience for you? And so they started pouring in these suggestions. So and the other thing was, I wanted to make sure that wherever I went was LGBT friendly, right? And so they started pouring in these suggestions. So there was Puerto Vallarta, which is where I ended up first, but that was on the list. Panama was on the list.
Okay.
Costa Rica was on the list. Portugal is on the list. And as far as within Mexico, they also, of course, suggested Merida and Playa del Carmen.
Okay.
So for me, I just started like joining then the Black expat communities for those places, like on Facebook specifically. I don't know about the other, like I'm sure they're on Instagram and other places, but in Facebook, you can join these expat groups that are for specific locations, and everybody in there is, if it's a Black expat group, right, everybody in there is Black, everybody in there has been to the place or is in the process of going to the place, they live there, they share information. So at first, in my way of doing things, right, I want to put it on a spreadsheet and dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure all the things make sense, and is the money gonna be right and all this. But I knew, like, my spirit was just like, you just gotta go. If you do your process, you're never gonna leave, because the things are not gonna ever line up just so. And you don't even know what lining up looks like if you've never experienced this, right? So the first thing I did was I lived at the time closer to Hobby Airport. So Southwest was like Bay, right? They got their 2 bags. I'm good. So I went on Southwest app, and I literally just started plugging in all the places with the low fare calculator to see, like, what's the best time of the month to go? When is the lowest cost days? How long are these trips, and how much do they cost? Because I knew that I was going to continue to do business here, and I was going to have to keep coming back and forth. So when I did this little, check, Puerto Vallarta was the closest, the fastest, the cheapest. I was like, okay. And ironically, Puerto Vallarta was the first trip I ever took after I became a mom. Once she turned 1, and I was like, I can go take a trip to kind of revive myself, it was PV. And I had not been since. So it was all like intended, right? Like, I didn't know it at the time, but who knew I would end up back there? So yeah, the Facebook groups was great. I also, of course, researched cost of living. I started researching. This is, Google searches, or starting to talk to people that live in those places, or that are in those groups, about what do I need? Because here in the States, right, when you go to get an apartment, you got to have everything. You got to have your blood type, 3.5 times the rent. And, you got to give them all the things. They want to know,
right.
Where your third, second cousin is from and what they do with their life. And so in Mexico, it's very, very different, right? Do you have a deposit in your first month rent in cash or pesos? All right, it's yours. Come on. You got
it. Wow. So I want to just step back just a little bit, because you talked about mental health, which is a real big deal, especially for Black women, and just the sheer exhaustion of being not just a woman, because women have always, we shoulder the brunt of a lot of things. Black women in particular, Black women born in the United States of America, we shoulder so much. And there's a woman named Stephanie Perry who does, you've watched Stephanie. So Stephanie's amazing. I love that woman and all that she does, all that she stands for. Love Stephanie
I watched her video too as a part of my research.
That's a good place to go and to start, is to see how it is even possible. So I love that she says that you can house sit around the globe. That's a way that you can do that. You can earn money and just house it and see some other things. So one of the things I remember was watching one of her YouTube lives, And she was saying that it's way too hard. Being a Black woman in the States is way too hard. And then she was talking about marriage and all these kinds of things. And she says it is much easier to exist outside of the US. She says it's so much easier. That doesn't mean that racism does not exist in these other countries, because it does.
Yeah.
It's a disease spread around the world, and then you get into colorism. That's a whole different conversation. But it's
Yeah.
not built into the system. It's not woven into the system, the very fabric of the country, like it is here in the United States. And so you may get a side eye or two, but that's, you're safe. You're not in peril. Your life is not in danger just because you exist, and you're not an automatic suspect. And so that was one of the things that came from watching her. And so I understand you're saying that it is exhausting being a Black woman. And we are forever the heroes, rescuing elections, rescuing all the things.
Everything. And it's the expectation of it, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not just my one Black woman is choosing to do this. It is an expectation that if you look like this, you're
Right.
going to save us all, but you are going to be the least protected, the least respected, the least of all things.
Yes.
Right.
And let me interject here, because you are in the beauty industry, and I heard it said that as Black women, the melanin in our skin keeps us. We age beautifully, and they're saying that the Black don't crack. But if you pull back the hood, if you open up the hood, you'll see that, there's so the weight and just the tearing down, it affects us mentally. It affects our physical. So while the outside may be flawless, on the inside,
many of us are broken. And it is so common for us to be broken that we don't know that we're broken.
Yeah.
And so I often feel a way about this new movement, right, of Black women healing. And as beautiful as it is to see that more of us are choosing us and going to therapy and all that, it is equally sad, right? Because this shouldn't be a great celebrated thing, because it shouldn't be, right? Like, we shouldn't be in this position at all. And then when you think about our moms and our grandmas and our aunties and all the people didn't get to this place, and you think about, you died in your brokenness, thinking that it was normal, right? It's yeah.
So when you think about grandmas and you think about aunties and grandmothers, so I like to say, and especially to the millennials, to the Gen Zs, that please don't judge this Gen Xer or baby boomers on freedoms that you now have. We didn't always have them. There was no, because remember, for a long time, therapy was for white folk, and you went to the church and you went to Jesus. You didn't get to go to therapy to work out things, and cycles kept perpetuating because we never got the help that we needed, because it was never okay. And I would say, even so, for me, like the 2010s, maybe it became somewhat okay for Black folk to start talking about therapy and that they were going to get therapy. And so for our grandmothers and our mothers who died in their brokenness, they didn't have opportunity. It's like, where could they have gone? Where could they have gotten help? Who could have? We were all in the same ship together, And it's like, how do you could, that's when you have to say they did the best they could with what they had and what was available to them. When you think about societal norms and what could you do? Women couldn't open up a business banking account, not, was it 83? I mean,
it's very, Yeah. So that's what, in my case, right? I knew I needed to save my life. Like I was not, and let me be very clear, I was not at all suicidal. What I felt was that, you know how they say that people have the most heart attacks on Mondays?
Mm-hmm.
And that's also the day that the most suicides occur, right? Because you got to go back to work.
Right.
Like you're about to go back into this matrix, right? What I felt was that all of the stress, all of the pressure, all of the always figuring it out and thinking and going and trying to work it out, I felt like one day my heart was just going to stop. So for me, saving my life was not, oh, I'm trying not to commit suicide or anything of that. It was like, I am trying not to let this stress of existing here kill me.
Yes.
Right. I have a child. I'm a single parent. So for me, it's like, if I am not here, and this is true for anybody, right? You lose a parent, but for sure, if it is the only parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one who is everything, does everything, creates everything. If I am not here, her whole existence changes. Her whole experience changes. And so for me, it was whatever it takes to stay alive. So, and I'll say two things. I'll go back to what you were talking about with Stephanie, and the ease of existing outside of here. I thankfully, and again, Puerto Vallarta is my first place of living. There's, I'm going to move around, but in my experience, I've not experienced any sort of racism in Mexico, at all. Like, no, they literally they love us. Right.
We've seen the videos. We know they love you. We have seen your videos. We are aware of how much they love you. Yes.
But what I say to people is, living in Mexico feels like peace. So even when I'm flying in and the stewardess doesn't have, we can't say that anymore. The flight attendant.
Yes. There you go.
Show my age. I'm showing my age. But the flight attendant doesn't have to say anything. When we get close enough and we're about to start descending, my being exhales. I always know when we're close. It just happens naturally, right? It feels like I can breathe. It feels like safety. And my daughter was with me over the Christmas break, and she is as tall as me, but the most scary little somebody, right? So I'm upstairs, she's downstairs, and somebody rings the doorbell. She comes scurrying up the stairs, whispering, door. And I'm like, answer it. She was like, I don't know who it is. And there's no peephole. I was like, just answer it. And she's all nervous. Before I even thought about it, I said, there is literally nothing to be afraid of here. You can open the door. And after I said it was when I realized just how safe. I mean, because in the States, I would not dare.
Oh, God. No.
I would not dare.
With a peephole.
Not only did you not open the door, but when I opened the door, I got what Madea call it, grace and mercy. I got grace and mercy ready just in case.
Okay, so you were talking about this this de-escalation or this deflating that kind of happens. You get to breathe, this exhale moment that happens when you're flying into Mexico. I have heard it said of people who have flown outside of the country and they fly back into the United States, that all of a sudden they feel this it's so just the opposite happens flying into this space. And I find that the body knows. It's amazing that the body, it knows. It really does know.
It's so true. So going back to the order of things, right? Remember, I am my spirit is like, just do the things. Don't think about it. Don't question it. So the first thing I did was booked one-way flights for me and my daughter. No clue where we're going to live. None of that. I booked the flights. Then I tell my apartment complex, I'm breaking my lease. This when we're leaving. Then I tell the landlord at my studio, for my business, I'm breaking my lease. This when I'm leaving. I don't tell anybody. My mama don't know. I don't tell anybody else. Right. But in July, I went to PV to go and then find a place. Now we start this process in like March, April, I think is when I booked the flights. And so now it's July and we're leaving at the end of August. So I'm like, well, you might want to go figure out where you're going to live. You might just want to go stop. Right? So I go have it was great. I stayed a week there, got my place, signed a lease and all the good stuff. I am on the way to the airport. I'm still in PV on the way to the airport to come back to the States. When I say my people who know me very, very closely will debate this, but I'm a thug. I don't do all that crying, right? I was overwhelmed and like in boo-hoo, those kind of tears.
Oh, wow.
Going to the airport. When I got to the States, so part of the stress and the anxiety or whatever, I would feel it in my body. Like it was like a ball in the middle of my back. The entire time I was in Puerto Vallarta for that trip, I never felt it. My thoughts weren't doing this. It was just peace. The moment I got to the States, I walk out of the airport to go get on the shuttle to go get my truck, right? Immediately, my thoughts are everywhere. I get in the truck and start driving. I lived about 9 minutes from the airport. I get in the truck and I start driving home. The pain in my back comes back immediately. I pull into the parking lot of my complex at the time, and my shoulders were in my ears. I could not. The body, none of this was intentional, but I was grateful that my spirit was aware, like it paid attention, because otherwise I would not have known, because I'm so used to having my shoulders in my ears, and I'm so used to the pain in my back, and it was a very vivid, like, I want you to know that this stopped while you were outside of this country. And the moment you came back, it started. And to this day, when I come into the States, it is ADHD on steroids. It is zoom, 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 zoom. My thoughts are crazy, and not crazy like I'm a crazy person, but crazy like they're just so it's so much. And that's just the energy of the States, because everything is go and grind and get more. You can't actually get to your graduation. You've just sent the invitations out and people are already asking you if you're going to do the next degree. Like, you haven't even walked the stage. Can I enjoy
this accomplishment? Yes. Agreed.
It's just the nature and the energy of this country. And so, to your point about Black women, it's hard for us to exist here. It's hard because there is this I hate to keep using the word energy, but there is this, that's what it is. It's you're not supposed to stop. You're not supposed to rest. You are a superhuman. You have a cape. It's invisible. You save yourself and everyone else all the time. You think of you last because everybody else depends on. So how can you breathe and survive in that? And what's happened is it's become so normal, right, that we overall have accepted it. And so until when somebody says that you can have something different, you can do something different, you can live a different experience, you can take charge of your life, it's harder for us to accept that. because it's like, well,
Yeah.
this the devil we know.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
I say all of this to say, going back to even what you said about our grandmothers and all of that, people kept calling me brave. But to me, I was just trying to save my life. But when I sit back and I think about it, I'm like, no, you really are doing a big thing,
Yes.
because you are actually living. I can do this. I can make a change. It is not
Yes.
the same as before. You do have options. You just have to move past the fear of doing something different. You have to move past the complacency of business as usual and life
Mhm.
as usual. And you got to be okay with understanding that I can do this different thing. And if
Yes.
I don't like it, or if it doesn't work, I can always come back.
Change
But
my
so
mind.
many people,
Yes.
they don't think about that. They just think, if you do this, it's the end of the world. Like, if you do this and it doesn't work, right, it's the end of the world.
And that's not the truth. You know
It's always not.
what I appreciate, what I see um, millennials and Gen Z doing is they're not moving out of the country. Some are, especially people, when you talk about people of color, Black people in particular. I see a lot of us doing van life, tiny homes, and moving around and experiencing a freedom just by not being stuck in one place, you know. So I do see, at least if they're not moving out of the country, because you know they still want to make their money, they still want whatever it is, amenities, things that they're used to here in the States, they may be next to family, that thing, but they're able to move around. So I do appreciate in the different ways that you can experience freedom, because maybe it's not leaving the country.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe it is just getting a tiny house or getting a van, convert that bad boy and go see some things. And even in van life, you have to be careful as a Black person, because there's a whole there are YouTubers, Black YouTubers out there who talk about van life and how it's a little different when you're a person of color doing van life in
Yeah.
the US. So
Yeah.
you can't escape it. There is no escaping. There just isn't. There's
And
no escaping
that's
it.
unfortunate, right? And I know that I have a Black daughter, but
Mm-hmm.
raising children in an environment where you have to make it normal for them
Mm-hmm.
to not to understand that their safety is never guaranteed.
Wow.
It's, again, you're so desensitized to it that
Mm-hmm.
feels normal.
Yes.
But
And then you're
when you're,
questioned. Then they'll tell you
yeah,
that you're overreacting. Then they'll tell you you're making stuff up, that it's not that bad. And it's like, you have no idea
you have no idea.
how normalized that this is. And so for us to want to choose something different, then you know, you always hear, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. And so now you got Black women going, two fingers to the
And we're out.
side, deuces,
And
we
we're
out.
out. And it's the I would recommend everybody do it. Like, everybody try it, right?
Yes.
Because it's, I can't even to say how much more peaceful it is, and to say how rewarding it is. I can understand how a person would be like, oh, you just saying that because it's you and everybody, you trying to get people to do it. But when you have the experience, right, it's not something that you can ever really describe.
Mm-hmm.
And people keep asking me like, oh, how's Mexico, or how you like it? And I'm like, y'all have no idea that every time I have to come back here, I'll be like, this is the most ghetto situation. This the worst hood of all. This is ghetto. So being very intentional with, making shifts,
Yeah.
deliberate shifts in my business, so that I don't have to do this so often. Like, I don't have to come
Yes.
back much.
So let's talk about that. How do you make money? Because that's so important. So I think there were two things I definitely wanted to have you talk about. One was the cost of living and how little, yes. So could you, because I think you made this public, but could you tell us at the time how much you were paying for rent and your light bill and all the things? How much were you paying? And please describe the lodging dwellings that you were staying in.
absolutely. You know, I love to tell this part. So I was paying $1,500. That is just the portion that I paid the complex. That's no electricity, no other stuff.
Mhm.
Just rent for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom flat apartment. There was
Okay.
somebody to the side of me, above me, and below me. I am connected to other people for $1,500, right? Then my electricity bill was probably around 150, 165, you know, depending on what time of the year it was. And then you have your home security and your internet. I think I was paying maybe $75, $80 a month for internet.
Mhm.
Of course, cell phones is like $200 for
Mhm.
myself and my daughter. Groceries, you know, we're spending at least $125 or more a week on just groceries.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
you got to eat out when you don't feel like groceries and all those things. So my expenses, not including what I was spending for my studio space,
Right.
insurance, all that. Oh, let's go back to this. My car note was $472. My insurance for the car was $128. Like,
Mm.
like y'all don't like my life. Y'all want everything. Right. So my expenses every month was right around $3,000.
Okay, that's here in the US.
Stateside. It's
Okay.
stateside. Yep.
Stateside. Got it.
So I get to Mexico,
Okay.
and remember I was paying these people $1,500 just for
Yes.
they
Yes.
flat apart. Okay. So in Mexico, I live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhome
Mhm.
with a private patio. It's absolutely amazing. It's in a gated community, and not the kind of gate where the gate be broke, but the kind of gate where there are people there. And you can tell us that you Uber. And if Miss Brown did not say you could come in here, you can't come in here. And
Hey.
beautiful, lush, like there's a walking trail in my townhome community with all this beautiful like foliage so that you're covered from the
Mm.
sun. A amazing pool. I mean, it's fantastic. I pay 900, not even. I pay 17,000 pesos a month to live there. 17,000 pesos is roughly $865, $75. So I always round it up to 900 because it just depends on how much the dollar is worth at that time. But all of this for $900. In Mexico, we pay our electricity bills every other month. So it's not monthly. So remember, I'm paying 150, 175 in the States every month. My highest bill in electricity bill in Mexico has been the equivalent of $60 US, and that's for 2 months.
I'm sorry, you
So
said
if you
$16? Is that what you said?
60,
60. Okay, thank you. 60. Okay, still.
so
Okay.
$30
A
a
month.
month
Okay.
compared to 150.
Gotcha.
And the 150 was the low end in the States, right? I have not switched my phone carrier because my daughter, we have the same company, and she decided to stay in the States. But if I choose to get a phone line in Mexico, a cell phone in Mexico, the entire year is about $36. The service is for the whole year. It's about $36 US.
Okay.
I can eat all day so my grocery bill is about maybe $60, and that's enough for 2 weeks, maybe longer. But if I eating out, I can have a full meal for like $4 US. I mean, it's just there's literally nothing that costs as much as it does here. And now I'm in a beauty industry, so people think that it's like a splurge or an option. I put my hands in people's faces. So getting my nails done is it's like a requirement, right?
Mhm.
Now, right now I just have, short, regular
Yes.
acrylic, blah, blah, blah. But I could go in and get my nails done, all the things, long,
Yes.
almond shape with the
Fancy.
design
Yes.
and I could get that full pedicure with all the things. Like, in
Mhm.
the States, you got the different levels of pedicure.
Yes.
I can get top level pedicure, top level nails, manicure, all the things for about $60 US for all of that. So I don't get my nails done here. If the only way I will get my nails done in the States is if I break a nail, or you know how like
Yes.
if I damage a nail and I gotta do it, otherwise I'm gonna keep, hurting myself every time I bump it, then I'll get a nail fixed here. But otherwise, Mexico, me, please. Give me all
Okay,
the
Nykema. So we have heard you say that there is a level of safety. We have heard you
Yes,
say that there is a decompression that happens. There's a piece that
yes.
happens. And now you're telling us all that comes at like half of what you was paying to live here in the States? Is that what you're telling all the
That's
lovely
what I'm telling you.
people?
Fraction of the cost. Fraction. And let me say this. PV is not the least expensive of all the places that you could go in Mexico.
True. Very true.
I mean, yeah. So I'm telling you based on PV. If you were to go to, say, Merida or
Yeah.
Playa del Carmen, like somewhere that's, I don't know, just a different place.
Less touristy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're good. If you were to go to a less touristy place, like, yeah, you would definitely.
Merida for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
And people, I could have, if I did the same $1,500 that I would do here, which I've considered it, but I was like, ain't no reason. Like I would be in the mountain waterfront, open my patio, and
Okay.
so I may do that. I may do that next with my next space. But all of that to say, for if I wanted to pay the same price that I would pay here, I would have even more beauty and serenity and access, like
And more than likely that would
away
probably
from
come with
like
staff.
yeah,
That would
or in
probably
or in a building that has like, so we have valet trash where I live. Like you just bring it to the front door. They cut your yard every day. I mean, every day they are doing something,
oh,
watering something, cutting something every day.
okay.
They have places where I have wash and dryer in my apartment, but they have places where you can go and get your laundry done. You literally just drop it off and then
Yes.
all the things, and it costs like $3. They do all the things.
Okay. Okay. Nykema. Okay. So you made the move, and
Yes.
we've heard you say that your daughter has stayed stateside. So tell us what about that experience, because I know in my last conversation with my last guest, we were talking about do you do it when the kids are young? Do you do it when the kids are older? And I think we said off air is that she was told that you do it when the kids are young, because when they get older, they get enmeshed. It's harder to yank them out, or to put, they don't want to go and they have a hard time transitioning. So tell us about
Yeah.
your daughter, and how did that go? I mean, you gave her tell us about that experience.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, when she was 8, for her birthday, I took her to Cabo. So that was her first time going to Mexico. And after that, I want to live in Mexico. I want to go to Mexico. We're going to live at the resort. We want to do all the things. Well, at that time, I wasn't there yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I bought the one-way tickets, now at this point, she is 12. And I'm thinking she's going to be so excited. And she was like, no, I don't. What about my friends? What about
Mm,
school? And so I didn't say this to her at the time, but I was just like, which set of friends are we staying for? Because y'all change friends every 3 weeks. By the time I learn their name good, you won't talk to them no more. So which friends exactly do you
see,
want to stay here for? But she was like, I'm not excited about it, right? So keeping in mind that at that time, I I come from a space where when I saw people, I didn't have my daughter, so I was almost 30, right? But
mm,
people would have their kids and then essentially like pawn them off on family members because they wanted to continue like living their best life, right?
yes,
So that's never been a thought for me that my child would ever live somewhere that I didn't live. So what I told her was like, I know you want to stay and you want to do this normal because it's, it's what you're used to. But unfortunately, mommy's not going to make it if mommy don't leave.
Mm.
So if mommy leaves, that means you have to leave. Whenever I come back, you can come back and visit your friends. Like, it's going to be great. I'm trying to convince her. The last day of school, I pick her up. Now, to this point, my child has never been to public school. She's always been private or charter.
Okay.
Never been to school bus. I have taken her to school her whole life. I picked her up
Okay.
whole life. So I'm in this drive line to pick her up, and she's walking towards the car and she is bawling.
Oh, wow.
And she gets in the car and I'm like, who did it? Like, somebody, what? Who did it? I'm ready. I'm ready to go fight children, child. I don't care. But she was like, I gotta, this is it. Like, you're making me leave. And, and I was just like, oh. So you don't want that. And then I'm thinking, this means I'm leaving to save myself, right? But if she's there and she's miserable, then I'm also going to be miserable. So I'm not getting saved. She's still not getting the best parent she could get. It's big snowball. But now, keeping in mind, to this point, I had not told anybody that we were even leaving.
Right.
So I was just kind of trying to massage the idea of like how great it's going to be to experience life in different places, and what kind of stories are you going to have for your friends if you've been here and you've seen this and you've done this and you've done that. And she just really wasn't having it. So when I finally did tell, my daughter's birthday is July 29th. My older sister on my dad's side, we joke that she's my baby daddy because she always helps me with like the birthday parties, and she took me to the hospital when it was time for her to be born, all these things. So because I felt like I have to explain to her why the birthday party budget is not as extravagant as it normally is, I tell her what's happening. And this is like a week before Madison's birthday. So we're about 35 days out from us moving. And so she says, oh, well, she can come live with me. Now, my sister has no children.
Okay.
She's been in education for a long time. We're not the same. We have the same face, but we are not the same personality, right? I have green hair. My daughter at the time had fire engine red hair. Like, I'm your mom, but we're a team. So if you got to say something, express yourself, like I allow that. My sister is more from the children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
You don't have no opinion unless I ask you for it. What I say goes. So I was just like, are you sure you want to volunteer? And I was like, she's 13, right?
Yeah.
That's terrorism. Like, do you want a terrorist in your responsibility? Like, are you sure? So I told Madison, and she was so adamant about wanting to stay. I think she was willing to whatever option I get to stay, I'm gonna stay.
Okay.
And we had to talk about it because I was like, TT ain't the same as me, right? That your experience is about to be very different. And I can't save you in TT's house, right? Like whatever or that's what it is. So we talked it over. She wanted to try it out. My sister was like, it's gonna be fine, we're gonna be good. So the original agreement was we will go through the semester, because I told her if you don't like it, if you change your mind, you can come with me, but you cannot say this like you can't say it in October and think you're gonna leave the school in the middle of the semester. So we went to Christmas break. She was fine. They had their things, right? There was a period of time where my daughter was calling me every day, and the conversation would start with, you need to talk to your sister. And I'm like, whoa, time out. Wait a minute. Who you talking to? Like, what's happening? And my sister would be texting me every day. Now, this ain't gonna work. She blah, 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 blah. And one day Madison called me in the car with my sister, and she's basically calling to tell on my sister with my sister in the car. And I don't know what they thought was about to happen, but I kind of let them both have it. Because y'all chose this. Yes. Y'all got to figure it out. Calling me and trying to put me in the middle of the things. Like, everybody's got to adjust.
Yes.
I told my sister, I'm like, can't treat her like every kid you've ever known. You asked me what her things are, what her tendencies are. I told you.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, her tendency is not to like, she's not that sneaky kid. She's not going to try to
Mm-hmm.
sneak around and she ain't trying to sneak out the house. That's not her. She ain't forging signatures. That's not
Okay.
her. Now, if you ask her, did she clean up something? She might lie and say she did when she really didn't. But that's about it. She's a really
Got
good
it.
kid. I was like, you got to stop putting her in this box in your head. And then, Madison, you got to stop trying to buck everything about this system. You
Yes.
are in somebody else's container. You are going to be subject to different rules. You knew
Yeah.
this going in, you agreed to it. Y'all figure each other out, but stop calling me. When
That
I say
part.
you could hear a pin drop on that phone, nobody was saying anything.
Now,
And
do
my
you wish
sister's
you
older. So it was like, who are
do
you
you
talking
wish you
to?
would have done
Because
it sooner though?
do I wish I would have done what sooner?
Made the move sooner, like when Maddie was younger. Are we?
I think if we could have done it then, if I would have done it then, if I would have known and had the wherewithal, it
Yeah.
would definitely be so much better. It would be so much better. I think that she would have much more confidence and that she
Mm.
would, because if you think about it this way, now she goes to public school. She was so excited about that because they don't care that your hair is fire and you're red, and they don't
Okay.
care that you want to come to school with your Crocs on. Like that's none of that's going to fly in the private school, in the charter school. But I think that sometimes she dumbs herself down
Mm.
to be accepted by those, the kids at that
Okay.
school. And I think that had she become a teenager in Mexico or in another country where, the experience is just different and the life is just
Yeah.
different, I think that she would not shrink back. Like it's not like I'm gonna be
Mm-hmm.
smart on this paper, but when I'm talking to you, I'm gonna act like you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, what advice do you have for, let's say, single mothers, Black single mothers in particular? What advice would you give them on making the move outside of the country?
Wow, that's a loaded question. The first thing that I would say is give them the opportunities that you didn't have.
Mm.
Rescue them as quickly as you can from this Black anxiety that we exist in, right? When you have to always be concerned about who's around you and am I safe and looking over my shoulder and code switching and
Ooh.
how I perform in front of white people or non-Black people, like that's we are inadvertently raising our kids to be anxious, right? We're raising our kids to be always on edge.
Mm.
And so if you're what's going to make you make the switch is to know that you don't have to raise them with that. You can save them from that. Do it, right? It's always going to America will be here. Maybe it won't, but it's going to be here for all intents and purposes, right?
Mhm.
So give yourself an opportunity to understand what peace looks like, what it feels like to live in it, what breathing without being concerned about how I'm going to do the next thing feels like. And you give your kids more of you when you don't
Mhm.
have to worry about all these things. So just
Yeah.
do it. Like, go see.
Mhm.
And if you're competitive, prove me wrong. Like,
I
just be
love
like,
it. I
oh,
love
so
it. I love it.
little green haired Black lady that she was wrong. Challenge me.
Nykema,
I love
I love it.
it.
Nykema, thank you so much for sharing your story and your truth and giving us so much insight on life outside of the country and how it is possible. And you don't have to be generating millions of dollars to do it either. Regular folk are making the move. So thank you so much. Please share with everybody how they can get in touch with you, how they can take advantage of your services and become their own brand. Tell us how they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. So I am on everything as Nykema Brown Beauty. That is Nykema Brown, like the color, beauty. And that's also my website. So NykemaBrownBeauty.com is my website. If you are specifically interested in my authenticity coaching services, the GFTP, that website is spelled out girl, F, the actual F word.
Wait, you got to say that again because there was a glitch in the Wi-Fi. Say that again. What's the website again?
I mean, I don't know if I can say the website or if I gotta.
We will put it up for everybody.
It.
I will put it up for everybody. So I will insert the clip. Go right ahead.
It is girl F them people, but you spell out the F word. So girlfthempeople.com is where you can find me. And there is also a private Facebook group for women of color that is the same name, but the U in the F word is an asterisk. So yeah, if you just type in girl F asterisk CK, then it'll come up. But yeah, that's where you can reach me. Obviously, my email is all the same, info@NykemaBrownBeauty.com. But yeah, those are all of my places that I can be located. And I'm super excited to talk with anybody, whether it's, you're interested in learning how to elevate your brand image, you're interested in becoming an expat moving abroad, or you're interested in whether you move abroad or you stay here, you just want to live and experience a more authentic life.
Yeah.
I'm all for all the conversations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this particular episode of This Woman Knows. There's more to come. So thanks, everybody. And thank you again, Nykema.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of This Woman Knows podcast. For show notes, blog posts, guest booking information, and sponsorship opportunities, visit us online at www.thiswomanknows.com today.